Hello and welcome to Armed with Faith on the Orthodox Christian Network. My name is Noelle, and today's program will be hosted by Father Gary Kyriacou, who serves the metropolis of San Francisco as the pastor of youth and young adult ministries, and is also the director of Ionian Village, which will be our topic of conversation for today. This program is a pre-recorded interview, but as always, we encourage you to share your questions and comments in the chat on social media, and we may get to some of your questions in the next program. The Orthodox Christian Network is a 501c3 corporation and a 100% donor-supported ministry. So we really appreciate all of you who contribute financially and keep these programs free and available. We also appreciate all of you who have joined my OCN community and who share this content with your friends and family. If you haven't already, we encourage you to join my OCN community for free and encourage others to join. You'll be the first to hear about all of our upcoming programs and opportunities, including some upcoming opportunities to share even more with other members of the community. So without further ado, I will turn things over to Father Gary for the program, and thank you again for joining us.
Hi, this is Father Gary. I'm at Armed with Faith. Thank you for being here. We're doing something new today, and I want to thank everybody for their patience and understanding. Ministry is starting to get just a little bit crazy, but traveling to different places in the country, and I find myself now at HDF in Orlando, Florida, representing Ionian Village as the director. And I'm excited because today's guest is Alexandra Manolis, who is the newly hired, it's been 3 weeks, as the program administrator for Ionian Village. And I'm really thrilled to have Alexandra on the show, but I'm even more thrilled to be working with her for Ionian Village. And so Alexandra, welcome. Thrilled to have you. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Father Gary, and I'm thrilled as you are to be part of the team for Ionian Village.
It's going to be a fun adventure, and it started officially, I guess, this weekend with both of us here at HDF. HDF is the Hellenic Dance Festival. It's the folk dance festival for the Atlanta metropolis, which is a beautiful event where the kids come together. So really neat stuff. They come together. But when we talk about our program, the next two shows, Alexander, I don't know if I even told you this, but today's show and next Tuesday's show is about Ionian Village. Next week on the show, I'm going to have a bunch of the young people that went with me to Greece for IB Next 2021. We're going to have a conversation about their experiences and how they liked it and how it helped with their faith. So, Alexandra, you and I have known each other for a while. I think that it's important that people know how we met and how our families are connected, because it kind of lends itself right into the story.
I first met you when you were a brand new assistant priest assigned to my home parish of Cathedral of the Ascension in Oakland.
That's where you grew up, right? Like you grew up
raised
Oakland. Tom was your priest, right?
I was baptized there. My parents were married there. My grandfather and grandmother. So that's really home base for me and my family over multiple generations. And you were assigned to serve as the assistant to our beloved late now Father Tom Paris. And I kept hearing, I was living a couple hours away, and I kept hearing from my parents and from my friends, oh, we've got this cool young priest and he's really cool. Ascension has, it's interesting, we're talking about summer camp. So Ascension has a long history of a parish summer camp that runs for 10 days only. And my son, who at the time was about 8 years old, even though I no longer was part of that parish, it's very much traditional. Send your kid back to go to Ravencliff so they can get a taste of Oakland. They can get a taste of summer camp. My brothers and I grew up there. It was my first summer camp job at age 17, being a lifeguard and what we used to call being a junior leader at Ravencliff. I'd been going there since a little kid, and you were the assistant priest where my son was.
That was my very, very first summer there. And you know what's funny about that, Alexandra, is I had just arrived. I arrived on June 1st, and Father Tom said, get ready, because on June 16th or something, you're leaving for summer camp. And so I was thrilled. I love summer camp programs. You know that better than anyone. So Georgie and I kind of hit it off. He was 8 years old, kind of hit it off and became buddies. And it was kind of a cool little relationship that we developed. You have 3 kids. But Georgie and I really have grown close. Julia and I have gotten to know each other through FDF recently. But Paul is the one that, like, you keep talking about Paul, but I've never, like, where's Paul? Like, how is it? But
Paul,
it's
Paul is always, and Paul has attended another great summer camp program in our metropolis, St. Nicholas Ranch, since he was a little boy. But Paul played competitive travel lacrosse all through high school. So his summers were always taken up. And one of my best things is that a few years ago, my son was on staff at St. Nicholas Ranch, and the younger kids were campers, the same thing. I'm like, all three of my kids are at camp together. That was when you have kids with a large age disparity, that doesn't happen. And it's, and Georgie at the time went to Ivy before you went to Ivy. And
yeah.
I had gone, and he encouraged you to go, which
so that's another really cool thing about this connection, because Georgie went and then said, Father Gary, you really got to go to Ivy. And I was like, it's like, Ivy is not my thing. Like, you would hear things about people that went to Ivy, right? Like it was, it was like an East Coast thing. Like West Coast didn't go to Ivy. But when I went to Ivy, I fell in love with it. Georgie and I reconnected. After that, Georgie came down and spent Holy Week at Camarillo at St. Demetrius with us. And then what was really cool about that, Alexandra, is that he connected with my boys, not only at Ionian Village, but then during Holy Week as well. So the connection has kind of gone like 2 generations now, right? From me to Georgie, Georgie to my boys, which is great. So I fell in love with Ionian Village. Beautiful program. I inherited a wonderful, wonderful program. Thrilled to have it. I've been the director now for 3 years. It'll be 3 years in October. And I've done a 10-day program. And I'm thrilled to have it. But we're hoping to have a good summer this summer. What's your experience with Ionian Village? You told us that you were part of your first camp job was a junior leader at Ravencliff. And what's interesting is that I've had to learn all these different terms from different programs that I've been part of, because I was at Ravencliff. I grew up at St. Sophia Camp. I've been to Ionian Village, St. Nicholas, and then all these just other retreat programs that are throughout the Archdiocese as well. Boston Diocese Camp, or now it's called Metropolis of Boston Camp, MBC. But with all of that, tell me how you ended up at Ionian Village and why you're so great for this position. Like when you and I started talking about it, it was we were kind of teasing, and then as we teased it out, we started thinking this could be a really, really good thing. So here we are. What's your history? Go ahead. What's your history with Ionian Village?
When I was a kid, and I mean really a kid, my dad was on Archdiocesan Council. He was on the Orthodox Observer Board, and he would be talking about this program. We were Californians. My parents had both been born here. We had very few relatives in Greece, and it was just this thing that sounded very cool. Our parish priest at the time, Father Paris, who you served under, his older kids went one summer. So when I was 14, I was going to go. I had to save my babysitting money to pay for the airfare to New York, and I was going to go. And that was many years ago. And to say that summer left the indelible imprint on me that fed the direction of many different things in my life. The reason then at 17, I was a lifeguard at Ravencliff was because I was determined I was going back to Ionian Village on staff one day. And I was a swimmer and a lifeguard. So I'm like, I'm going back. Then a few years later, I was fortunate enough to be selected to serve on staff. That was an experience unlike any other. It's a different staffing experience than working in a metropolis or a parish camp. The training, and it's gotten even better as the years have gone on. Those friends from that first summer on staff are my kumbari, some of my closest friends here at HDF, because as a Californian, I haven't spent too much time in the South. At HDF, somebody came up to me, Alex, with her Southern accent, and it was a friend who I had served with at IV many years ago. Here she is running a dance program in her community. And then I was very fortunate. I came back to California. I was working in an ad agency in San Francisco, and the IV director at the time, Father Costa also worked in the Department of Stewardship of the Archdiocese, and we were talking one day. He's like, why don't you come work for me? So I picked up, moved to New York in my 20s and worked at the Archdiocese in an office that was shared with IV. So I was in the administrative, seeing what was going on, helping put kids on planes at different times. So IV.
So you're a California girl. You grew up in the Bay Area. You saved your money. I just want to summarize this real quick so I can make sure that I'm on board with the story. You're saving your money. Your parents made you pay for your way to JFK.
Yes.
And from JFK to Athens, they paid for the
whole program
registration. Yeah. You do the program. You do Ravencliff. You meet Father Costa. Father Costa then says, "Come work for me at the Archdiocese." So you go back to New York, and you're living in New York, working at the Archdiocese on 79th Street. Is that right?
Yes, and that was,
okay.
And but that experience at 14 showed me it. That experience as a young teenager showed me the potential of how I could live my life in the church, be a part of communities, be a part of leadership. Because of different places that I've ended up living, IV has provided a strong connection to people, but it's also armed me with armed with faith. I'm looking at the logo in your background. It did.
Love it. I was going to say thank you for mentioning it.
But it drove me to want to serve my parish, want to serve my church. Then it was very important to me that, if at all possible, my children experience it. So my kids whose lives have been complicated for different reasons, IV and other it's why I really believe, besides just Ionian Village, why I really believe in camping programs in general. I feel that camp gives kids and young adults a chance to be themselves, be away from the outside world, allows them to grow in their faith, have examples with staff, with counselors, with clergy, in a way that's outside of the boundaries of their communities, but also outside of the influences that they can talk about things, they can learn about things, they can also see like, wow, look at that, I could do that. Or what I think has been really incredible, both in my life and the life of my kids, is then they also have people they can count on and these days communication is so much easier. I would run home from school my first year after IV as a camper to check the mail, to see what letters I got from friends who are still friends, but to check the mail because, oh my God. And I remember like one day having 3 letters, and I like made myself, and I'm not a patient person always, but made myself like space open one day, one the next day, one the next day.
That's great. That's great. I remember saving quarters to make long distance phone calls to friends after school from the phone booth. So my parents wouldn't get mad that I was making long distance calls.
Oh yeah. You never called in. And
but those friends are summer camp friends are something that you can't ever like. It's weird to me because you spend like 7 days with them at a regular summer camp, right? Or you might spend 2 weeks with them or 10 days with them at Ravencliff. And then at Ionian Village, you're spending 3 weeks with them. But these people become you said Kumbadi. These are people that baptize your kids. They become your best friends, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's wild.
And the thing about it is, and I think we've all had these experiences in summer camps, retreats, you feel that you've been gone for a year. And it's like, wait, I was only there for 5 days or
Exactly.
for however many days. And I think part of it has to do with when you have a program that is run well, where all of the homework and all of the hard work has gone into it behind the scenes, so that when you're there as that camper, you don't even understand how much work has gone into it to make that day that you're traveling in Greece, you're going to a monastery, but then you're also coming back to an evening activity. How much work has gone into it? And why are people working to go into it? They want these kids to have the experience. And I think Ionian Village Archbishop Iakovos of blessed memory wanted to provide us with this connection to Greece. We had been in America, but now how do we stay connected? And I truly believe that for the child, whether you're a child of immigrants, but whether you're a child of, my kids are the 4th generation to live in the United States. They go to church. My son, who's now newlywed, who met his wife at Metropolis camp, is chaperoning the Metropolis of Denver basketball tournament because he lives in Dallas. Well, that's just natural. He has a full-time job, but okay, sure, because I get to do this. And it provides also kids with a grounding. And I think this day and age that camping especially helps give them a sense of who I am, who I can be, how I can step back, how I can talk to somebody who's really going to listen, who's been trained to listen, where I'm safe, where, and as a parent, you know, I look at it this weekend. One of the wonderful things about being at HDF doing IV promo was being able to talk to people and talk to parents who asked me different questions and asked different things.
You got me to sit up with that, because I want to tell you that I sat there watching you, and everything that you and I talked about when we, like, the benefits of you in this position came to fruition in those conversations. Like, I sat there watching exactly what, like, we wanted to develop out of, like, you being here, because really, no one's going to know our ages, but we're not the typical like staff that works at Ionian Village, right? Like, there's usually, it's like 24, 25-year-olds, 26-year-olds that are doing it, right? And I remember when I said, this is my finalist, this is the person I want to hire to the Archdiocese, they were like, they said, pardon the pun, but it's an unorthodox hire. And I said, yeah, but listen to why. And please go ahead and explain the conversation that you had, because it's so perfect. Like, we're taking kids on a plane to another country, right? It's not like we're taking them down the street or up the mountain. We're taking them to another country, and it makes parents nervous, right? So
Absolutely.
You get hired and you're able to tell them what? Go ahead.
Well, and I look back at that. My parents put me on that plane to Kennedy and put me on that plane to New York. They couldn't check Facebook to see pictures for proof of life every day. There was none of that. We sent a postcard. They made us write a postcard the day we landed. Like, okay. That was it. I had a conversation with a lovely mother yesterday, and she has a teenage daughter she really wants to send to IV. She didn't need to be sold on the program, but her concern was her daughter, who had a hard time somewhere else. And I said, first of all, I've been a teenage girl. Nobody wants to go back to that. I've raised a teenage daughter. I've been in the cabins, and what makes IV particularly special is that you don't have to know anybody when you come. In some ways, I think it's even better. You can really break out, but our counselors and our staff are trained well to look out for that kid who maybe is having a harder time at first. I know from my experience as a staff member, also my experience as a parent of a camper, that it takes a moment, but and I said to her, I said, I can guarantee you, I said, I know it's so hard to believe. I said, I can guarantee you that she will have a good time, that she will get something out of the program. And I think that we all bring something to the table, and sending your kids in the middle of everything we've been through the past few years, and, the way that it's affected our young people in particular, who have had their schools upended, who have had their careers upended. And, kids are far more resilient than we often give them credit for. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And I believe that 100%. Yet, how about then also helping them towards getting that resiliency and learning that life throws you curveballs, and we can give you the things to figure it out. And here's how you can learn more about your faith and your culture at the same time and appreciate it. I think one of the things at IV that I love is, yes, we go to places of ancient Greece like Olympia to learn about the history of the Olympics, but then we go to Kalavrita, which is so incredibly poignant in what happened in World War II. They get a full breadth and depth, and then we go to Zakynthos. And so those memories of going as a teen shaped me. And when IV posted on Facebook the other day that I got this job, and then I reposted, and I'm like, if you know me, you know that this is, and my friends, both Orthodox, non-Orthodox group, they're like, oh my gosh, like, we are so excited for you. And I feel that also it's comes back full circle to that experience I had at 14 and the relationships that formed out of there that have helped me throughout my life until this moment. And it's a way of giving back to a program that I so firmly believe in. It's a different time, funding and things are difficult. And so why not take, we're asked to take our talents and treasures when we can. And this is, what I'm doing. It's an adventure, to be sure. As a grown-up adult, the fact that I get to go back to summer camp, it's pretty much, my brother said to my mom, that's a job for her. Like that's like the perfect thing for, and so I think we have to take, and I think if we've learned anything over the past few years, it's that we can change up how we do things and we can change up what we can say yes to.
Absolutely. Alexandra, you mentioned really briefly, you kind of went right through it about the complications that some of your kids have had, your kids have gone through. Don't want to talk about any of that, but I want to ask you, with the challenges that you faced in your life, how did your camp friends and your IV friends and your church friends and your faith especially help you through that? And again, we don't need to talk about the issue, the problem, but I'm sure I'm asking the question hoping that the answer is going to be what I want it to be. But I'm assuming that they all came to your rescue, like they were all there for you.
And I've had big losses and big changes in my life, starting when I was, in my, when I was in college and I had a brother who was killed, and then going through other things in adulthood. And those
he was your younger brother, and
he was my younger brother, and he was
a passenger in a car, and the driver of that car was.
And he was
a
driver he was in a car for 1 minute. And that really shaped so many things of, this is the worst thing that can happen to a family. And yet without a strong community to support you. And then later on through my life, when things didn't always go my way for me, and when things were happening, and when I had different experiences, the church, the IV friends, were there for me in ways that, and other friends too, but those camp friends are there for you in a way. You've kind of gone through the trenches together. One of the things that was pretty incredible was some friends who literally showed up on my door during adulthood, like who had planned to who just flew in, and they were from camp. And what has been really wonderful is my son, Georgie, who got married, and had been postponed because of COVID. So it ended up being a smaller wedding than originally planned this past June. Small for a Greek wedding, 120 people, and the reception, I would say that to some of my non-Greek friends, and they're like, that's not small.
Right.
And the reception was beautiful in the bride's parents' backyard, and there was, he had cut from the list some of his high school friends, college friends, but he had a small core group of his IV staff friends there, not everybody he wanted. And somebody turned to my mother and said, wow, those IV people show up. And my mom said, oh, they've been showing up in this family for decades. Like that's just like, without missing a beat. She's like, oh yeah, they show up. And I think that that's one of the things that being involved in youth ministry, being involved in camping programs, teaching Sunday school, that's what arms us to give us the strength and give us the tools to go through it. You look at Ionian Village, and you look in parishes across the country, and somebody teaching Sunday school or helping with the dance group or serving in Philoptohos board, a lot of them go back to camping experiences that gave them something a little different than their regular weekly lives.
I love hearing you say that. And anybody can go to ionianvillage.org and learn a little bit more about the program. There's still time for any young adults that want to be on staff to register and be on staff. If they've never been to Ionian Village, that's not a requirement to be on staff. If you've never been a camper, you can go and register and submit an application to be part of that. Also, we take doctors and nurses with us as well. So doctors and nurses can apply to be on staff and to be there and be part of the summer. And also clergy, right? We take clergy with us as well to be part of that. But for the person that never has been to Ionian Village, why don't you explain like what it is? Is it a travel program? Is it a summer camp? Like if I were to send my kid to a summer camp in Greece, right? Are they going to go and sing kumbaya songs and sit by the pool? Because they could do that here and I don't have to spend, the resources that it takes to get them there. What's so special about Ionian Village? Like what happens at Ionian Village?
As I was chatting with a mother yesterday who was asking me the same question, she said, and this was somebody who her child had gone to Greece to Often, and she acknowledged that they go to their village on the island, they go to the beach every day, they do this, they see the cousins. And I said, well, what makes this difference is it's multifaceted. So first of all, you're with a group of your age group from all across the United States. So you start out with that. I said, you're also in an incredibly well-run summer camping program. You have fabulous evening activities. You have liturgical experiences every day that just become part of the rhythm of your life. You have the morning services, you have evening services, and it's done in such a way that it just becomes part of your daily living. Then you also get to travel, but you don't just go and travel, you get to see things, you get to incorporate that. Then back when you come back to camp, you live the lives of these saints who have walked. They feel real in a way that when you're sometimes listening to a priest talk about a sermon about a saint and you're dozing off because it doesn't affect you or touch you in a real way. You also get to interact with Greeks. It is the land of most people, although you don't have to be, and there are a lot of kids who are not necessarily have our Greek ancestry who attend, but it connects you in a way with your forebears. It gives you an understanding of also the immigrant experience. So it's all of those things tied into one, and then it's your faith on top of it. You swim together, you play together, you travel together, you're on buses together, you're in Greece together, you're you're learning what a frappe is and thinking this is the best thing I've ever had, and now all I need is a frother at home and I'm like gonna be Nescafe for the rest of my life. But you're experiencing, you're riding ferries, you're doing all of these things, and then you come back to camp and you have time to reflect on it, you have time to do devotionals with your cabin, you have time to be with young adults who you can look up to as role models and mentors, and you take all that back. It's like why they come back after 3 weeks of this program and they feel they've been gone for a year, because so much is packed into it and it's so multifaceted. It attacks all of the senses of your being.
Let me ask you, I know the answer to this, but somebody doesn't need to be ethnically Greek to go, right?
That's what I just said. Absolutely not.
It has nothing to do with being ethnically Greek. I mean,
No.
there was a young lady that was with us this last summer in 2021 who was not Greek, but it was all about her. For her, it was all about her faith. And then she was able to see how the Greek culture interweaves with the faith, right? Like I've heard older people say that like the Orthodoxy in our culture are like fingers on the same hand, right? Like you can't separate that. And it's a beautiful thing to see that aha moment for the kids, right? That just time where they just they get it. And that's like the buzz that I chase with youth ministry, right? Like that's what we go for. What are you looking forward to? When was the last time you set foot on that campus? When was it?
I'm not even going to say the year.
Let me just tell you, I'm laughing because I'm watching you go through this experience. And I told you that there's a great, I haven't watched it, but Val Kilmer has been documenting his life for the last 10 years, right? And they made it into a Netflix special. And I'm afraid to watch it because I don't know what it's going to be about. But I thought we should record this and do a Netflix special on Alexandra going back to IV, right? Because you keep saying a month ago, Father Gary, or 6 weeks ago, I would have never thought that I'd be sitting behind the IV booth at HDF talking about recruiting kids and their parents to send them to Ionian Village. So when we go set foot on that campus, I have not asked you this question on purpose. I'm saving it for this interview. How long has it been for you to be there? Like, what do you remember?
I remember everything. I mean, and it's okay. So there's two parts of the answer to the question. Okay. When I left as a camper, I was like, I'm coming back. Like, okay. I'm coming back. Like, there's somehow I'm coming back here. So I always knew after that experience, I would come back. And then I was fortunate enough to be able to do so. It's been many years. It's before I had children. It was, as my daughter would say, in the last century. So
That's true, right?
and it's really interesting. So I've had these different Ivy friends who are like, oh my God, you're going to go back. And I'm like, I can't even think about it because I can't even imagine what it's going to be like to drive through those gates. And I feel like I'm almost going to feel the same excitement that I felt at 14. Yet I feel like also when you interviewed me and we were talking, because I said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and apply. What the heck? Why not? And then I showed you at the end of our interview that the screensaver on my phone for years has been a picture of the chairs in the Pines, which is where we had done Orthodox life as a camper, a staff member. So I think I'm going to be probably a little overwhelmed when I first get in. I also know that I'm going to be thinking of the 500 items to do on my to-do list.
I'm sure.
It's going to be that. It's going to be that. But I think that the real moment for me when I realized that I'm home is, you know, we always say hashtag take me back to Ivy.
Right.
And the other hashtag is meet me at the chapel. I
Right.
think that that's going to be kind of like the moment for me, like, wow, this is real. And here I am. And I get to do this, and how incredibly blessed, fortunate that you and the Archdiocese have put your faith in me to do this. But it's going to be, I think it's just going to be kind of, it's going to take me, it's going to be a little out of body almost for a few. I'm going to be like, I'm back at IV, like nothing.
I've been thinking like, I got to send you ahead of everybody. Like you got to have like a day to yourself there. I just imagine us getting off the bus and you just being like, it's like, no, Alexandra, wake up. It's not a dream. We got 200 kids here. We got to put them in cabins. We got to feed them. We got to do this. But
like even,
let me go ahead. I'm sorry.
Even talking to the parents the other day, I've been known, especially the metropolis of San Francisco, which is farther removed from the Archdiocese from Ionian Village. So over the years, I've been a resource and someone who will say, oh, can you talk to somebody about IV? Or, oh, can you, before social media, I had done some staff interviews, or I'd show a video or something. So even being here at HDF, it feels very natural. And I think that that's the thing. And, you know, it's one of my old colleagues from my last job reached out. She goes, wait, is that the camp in Greece that you used to have and I'm like, yeah. She goes, that's your job? And I'm like, yes, that's my job. So I feel like I've kind of won the like big adventure excitement. But yeah, it is going to be weird to be back. I haven't really thought about it yet. Now you're going to make me think about that on top of my to-do list.
Sorry, but I'm excited because I'm heading out there later this week and going to be there. We're going to do some neat stuff at the camp and try to get it ready for the kids. We did a program last summer. We had 75 young adults that went. We did a 10-day program through, and it was kind of rushed, but it was like the goal then was get them to Greece and from Greece without COVID. And we did it, right? Like we got them in and out without COVID. You talked to me and I loved the questions that you asked me at the end of the time that we interviewed was like, what are your goals with this and that? And we kind of share the same kind of sentiment when it comes to Ionian Village and it comes to programs like this. As the program administrator, what's your goal with the job? Like, what do you want to see happen in your tenure in this position?
I want to see a program that runs well, that is safe on all different kinds of safety levels, not just COVID, but where people feel comfortable sending their kid to camp in Greece. I also want kids and young people to come out of it feeling secure in their faith, to go back to their parishes and work well and be a part of things, whether it's, you know, helping volunteer at some kind of event, or whether it's just feeling like they belong while they're sitting in the pew. I want each kid to have an experience that gives them something more. And the best way that you can do that is to have a program run well. And so that's why we're doing all this right now.
So I'm of the opinion that these programs that hand kids the opportunity to be leaders, to be in charge, to take ownership of the ministry, like Ionian Village staff members, and that I feel that that's an investment for the future of the church, right? But even more so, like the kids that go to Ivy to participate in Ivy, I think come back here with an understanding that they need to take ownership of the church and like be part of it and like invest themselves in it, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm thinking of like the people that you think of, like that showed up at your doorstep, that called you in dark times, or that were in your Georgie's wedding, that were there for him, right? Like those people. What is the common characteristic among them that bonds you together? Like what is it that has kept you, and how is it that we can make that more real for everybody in the Archdiocese?
I think it goes back to, and it can happen at all different levels of programs and youth ministries, but it's that shared connection, that shared experience, that shared comfort, that shared faith. And again, it has to shared what we had together at one point that made us supportive of each other, so that you're going to continue that. Also showing that the importance of being there for one another. So when you're there for somebody at summer camp and you grow together, that relationship can live on. In some ways, with social media and with a more connected world, sometimes these kids are lucky. My daughter went to camp in 2019, and she was going into her senior year of high school. And that year was the year then that they were seniors during COVID. So no graduation, no prom. And she had her very close friends and good friends in school, but she also had her Ivy cabin mates who were all going across the same thing, all across the country. And they would have like weekly cabin chats post camp now a year later. But because they were all going through the same thing, they were all showing up for each other. They were all figuring it out. They got their counselors in on the calls, and they could be together to support each other and pray together and really come to understand that showing up for your fellow man and treating people with kindness and respect is how you really serve the church well.
Love that. I love that. And you know how special your family is to me, your dad, your mom, your brothers, and then especially Georgie and Julia. And one day I'm gonna put my arms around Paul and say, "Nice to meet you, buddy," and pinch him and make sure that he's real.
He can't believe that he in September set up his summer plans with an internship and a job as a college student. He's like, and now you're going to Greece all summer, and I'm going to be in Wisconsin. And I'm like, that's good, dude. Somebody has to work. Somebody has
to do the work. Listen, I can't believe how quickly the time went by. Like we've done like a 45-minute show so far, and we usually have it's usually live. It's not recorded. It's the first recorded show, so we don't have anybody ask us questions. So just me and you here. So we're going to wrap it up here, and our producer, who is gonna do the opening and the closing for us, you can put some little tags on it, make it fancy. But I always give the guest the opportunity to wrap up the show, to like final thoughts sort of thing, like just share like whatever you want to share. And I just want to say that there were some very, very, very qualified people to take the position that you're in right now. That very, very qualified people. And as I prayed about it, and as it came to be, it just this is like a gift from God, because the way that it all morphed together and came. So I kind of see us kind of working a miracle together, like working this. And I'm hoping that the lives that we touch are enhanced, and that 25, 30 years from now, there's kids that were part of our program that are doing it for their kids, right? So that's my final thought on all of this. Tell me, and you got to take about 3 or 4 minutes and just share with us and just wrap up the show on how you feel taking this position and working for the Archdiocese in this way. And what's funny, I'm going to tell this story real quick, okay? Because you used to work at the Archdiocese, you left the Archdiocese for many years, and now you've gone back to the Archdiocese, and somebody who has continued working there all year long, all the time, said to you, isn't it weird to see all these priests in suits after all those years of being in robes? And you said, no, because what? Because when you were there, they were all in suits as well. You skipped the robe thing, right? So it's hilarious how you're right back. You're like back. It's like back to the future sort of thing, right? So, Alexandra, I want to thank you for believing in me to accept the position. I want to thank you for understanding the goal that I have in youth ministry and bringing our kids closer to the church, and the resource and the tool that we have in Ionian Village to really arm our kids with faith and to meet me at the chapel and that whole sentiment of all of that. And you and I will talk about bringing adults to Ionian Village, because I know that there are people that never got to go that would like to go, and maybe we'll create some programs like that. But what are your goals? Like go ahead and wrap this up for us. Put a bow on it for us.
My goal is what I said before, to be able to have young people across this archdiocese have this experience, have this truly best summer of your life, transformative experience in the church with each other. My goal also selfishly is to be able to work for a church that I've loved my whole life, that my family has served, and that I'm feel grateful at this point that I get to come back and do this work. Like it's very Back to the Future. I mean, walking into the Archdiocese last week, I thought, this is just one of the most bizarre things, not being bizarre there, but just here I am again. And also, I think one of the things is, when you first were appointed, I remember texting or calling you saying, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. This is great. And I've felt that way about every director who's taken it. Everybody has a different time and a place. I also feel that this is a special moment in time as we're hopefully coming out of this pandemic, that young people need programs and things that anchor them to the church and to the faith even more. So just like I'm the kind of unorthodox candidate for this job at the moment, and I wrote a crazy cover letter, and I said, not a cover letter I would write for a different corporate communications job. I said, I've been training for this my whole life. Like, this is my dream job. And truly, that's what it is. It's a dream job, not just for myself, but for what it allows me to do for others.
I love that, Alexandra. And here's, we don't drink when we work, but if I had a drink, I would say cheers to that, because amen, and clink clink to all of that, and may God bless it and may God multiply it. And let's we'll do another show when it's all done and said, and we'll wrap it up in that way. But thank you very much for being my guest. Thank you for being part of the show, and especially for being my co-worker in Christ and working to bring kids closer to a relationship with Him through the church as well. So have a great evening. We'll talk soon, I'm sure. I'm sure there's emails that I need to respond to that you've sent, and work that we need to do. So God bless you, God be with you. And I want to thank everyone for listening and being part of Armed with Faith, and for everything. So thank you very much. Take care. And Noel, I'll let you close it out. Take it. It's all yours.
Thank you, Father Gary, and thank you to all our viewers for joining us. If there are questions we weren't able to answer during this program, or you just want to leave feedback on the show, you can email us at info@myocn.net with Armed with Faith in the subject line. You can find our full calendar of upcoming programs, including our Thursday Let's Talk Live and our Bible studies from Ascension Cathedral, as well as many other programs coming up, on our website, myocn.net, under Programs. Join us next week for another episode of Armed with Faith with Father Gary Kyriacou, and we'll see you next time.